Hello and welcome, everybody, to a Britvengers podcast. I'm Nemo the Mormon. As all of you know, we've just been observing a moment's silence for the Queen. And we were wrong. We were wrong because we all got very excited this weekend. We saw that there were special state conferences over multiple states in the southeast of England. We got very, very excited because we thought, oh, there's an apostle. They were hearing rumors an apostle's coming over. We've just come off the back of Lichfield State getting closed. Some of the stakes in question weren't doing very well. And we were wrong. Nothing of substance happened. Yes, there was an apostle here. And yes, there were special state conferences. But apart from that, there wasn't much to see. But we won't let that get in the way of a good time. We won't let that get in the way of having a good discussion. So I'm going to bring everyone in and we're going to have a chat about what we expected, why we expected it, and what we got instead. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, hey.
Oh, right. Okay. So I think Peter was the man who broke the news to the group that there was going to be some special leadership sessions and all this sort of stuff going on.
Okay.
So, Peter, would you like to explain to us a bit about the lead up to these special state conferences we've just had?
Yeah. So we started to hear sort of from various people that there were going to be impromptu state conferences out of the usual sequence, so extra, and they were going to happen in pairs. So around London, there's a set of stakes: Watford, Reading, Wandsworth, Maidstone, Canterbury, Staines, I think. I'm not sure. Anyway, Romford, and we've there that this weekend there would be 3 state conferences where in each case, 2 stakes would get together. And for us here, that means quite a bit of travel to get there. And then we heard that Quentin Cook was going to come and that they were going to have a training session on Saturday yesterday at Hyde Park in London, and that he would be leading that. And initially, all the sort of auxiliary presidencies and everything were invited, but then they just invited the councillors, so it was just presidents going. But they did have it online, so some people caught it online who were in those presidencies, and it was obviously sort of made us wonder, and a lot of the local members wonder if something big was afoot, if they're going to do some more boundary realignments or organising. We need to re-emphasize for our American audience that it's incredibly rare still to have apostles here, although we've had, a couple of visitations in the last year or two. There can be years that go where no apostles come to the country, as far as I recall. So it's quite unusual for us to have someone like Quentin Cook here. So that was the buzz. And we speculated like mad about what it could actually involve.
Mm-hmm.
My hope was that Quentin would finish his talk from the last one, because he kept in the British Rescue last Halloween when he was here with Elder Holland and Elder Ballard. He gave this long rambling talk where he was going on and on about his glorious ancestor Helen Mar Kimball, most controversial name in all of church history, the teenage bride of Joseph Smith, offered up by her parents, and he's all proud of her and showing off books of her history. And he kept saying, I'm going to finish with this history stuff and talk about the future. And then he just kind of ran out of time, and that's all he ever talked about was the past and reminiscing about his mission. And we just get punch drunk in this country over and over again. We get hyped up, we get promised, or we're going to be at the feet of the apostles, something significant will be said. They will actually speak to the fact that the church is disappearing in our country. And then we just get them navel gazing and going on about themselves and how special they are.
And what did anyone else expect? What did anyone else got anything to say about what they expected from this? Any of our northern friends?
A combining.
PD, you go.
A combining of stakes, definitely, and also just a whole realignment around the whole London region, really, for the sake of making, as we say, a southern powerhouse. They could have really gone to town. I don't know why they've not come to the point where they have stake presidents. I know they have Area 70s, but why can't they have regional presidents? You know, they could have done something new and made like these 6 stakes into their own specific region and really like put some more men in. Yeah. Well, I guess maybe it wouldn't, but I don't know.
Hey, no, they're
That's
getting
what we
progressive
need. More
here in
men in
Europe.
charge.
They're getting
For
progressive
us,
here in Europe.
we were expecting closures. Absolutely. We were expecting the same as last time, simply because the church in the United Kingdom and Europe, the church in the British Isles is dying, and we are watching a slow, painful death here. So we were kind of expecting that, but yeah, I was surprised it didn't happen.
And to be honest with you, it's a good week for bad news, because all the news this week is about this lady, so they can hide bad news.
Yeah, so it would have been a good time to drop bombshells if they needed to. But this visit was planned before Her Majesty the Queen passed away.
Yes, but Nemo, they're prophets, seers, and revelators, so they knew that was going to happen. Come on, dude.
I mean, I have no rebuttal for that. Nothing at all. But Peter, one of the stakes I believe was it Romford's?
Romford, yeah. So
yeah,
Romford
struggling,
stake is
no?
in. Yeah, well, it's in Essex. It's east of London, just across the River Thames from our ward. Has my cousin is actually the stake president of it. Young guy, amazing. And they have 6 wards, and one of them, the one opposite us, is really tiny. And their American bishop moved back to America 6 months ago, but he's still bishop of it and running it by Zoom, which kind of implied that maybe he's just in a holding pattern. So they're going to do a major reorganization rather than call a new bishop and then fire them straight away. But so far, none of that. So that was a big reason to expect some boundary changes. They could really do with perhaps some wards being attached to them, or moved from Ipswich State to the north, perhaps, or something like that. So we'll see if that. Well, something will still have to happen. I mean, you know, these congregations are still disappearing and their bishops in America. So who knows what the plan was.
And what we did
so that was
see,
the reason for us to think there might be some changes. Yeah.
What we did see was a leadership session, which we'll come to in a moment, and also a young adult devotional. Now, what I've noticed, I don't know about any of you guys, I've noticed in recent years, young adult has been a label that has started to take over far more in the UK. YSA things seem to be a little bit less common. They seem to basically have realized that they don't have enough YSA. So kind of just, if you can, lump it and bear it. The YSA will have to hang out with the young marrieds as well. Yes, PD? You're muted, my friend.
That's just the way she likes it. I got married very quickly after my mission and never did any YSA stuff. And I don't think it's so much, maybe it is the numbers, but I think it's possibly as well people putting off kind of settling down because they then lose that kind of YSA group and life. You know what I mean? Because as soon as you're married, you've been going out every Friday night
life at church.
and at the weekends with your social life at church. Then you get married, do the dirty, and then you can't be seen with those people again. So it seems
for fear of making them jealous.
Yeah, it seems an arbitrary. Well, can you imagine going to all the YSA, to all the recently returned missionaries, and being like, "Tonight, baby," and it's okay. Sorry, go on.
No, but to your point, there is a major life event that takes place once you get married for a Mormon. You know, and your worldview will shift and your life shifts. And certainly for me, I got married at 21, and all of a sudden, a lot of my friends in YSA, they were more interested in hanging out with their YSA friends. They didn't want to have third wheel, me and my wife. It's not happening.
No.
Laura?
No, I was just earlier going to say, you know, Romford Stake is the stake I grew up in. So that little ward you're talking about was my ward. Got a lot of heart. Hang on in there, Romford. You can do it. Keep going.
Was it always quite a small unit?
The unit I grew up in is a very conservative unit, but the whole stake in general, there's a couple of units in there that are quite liberal and forward-thinking, particularly one in particular that I would put up there as one of the best units from what we're getting feedback in the UK. They're great for very progressive thinking and being willing to challenge, but also credit to the leaders, they're willing to listen as well. So hopefully that's not put them on the radar for anything.
Excellent, Julian.
You've just signed their death warrants.
Can I just say as well? Go on, Julian.
No, it's nothing big. I was just going to say we can only speculate, but I don't suppose that it is beyond plausible that they did have plans to do stuff, and after the death of the Queen, and we've got a lot to be sorrowful about in the UK. We've lost the Queen, and we've got Liz Truss as Prime Minister. So, it's like, you can't kick someone while they're down, can you? Maybe thought, well, we'll leave off breaking them up.
We'll leave off.
Having said that, look at what happened with the Lichfield stake. That was spun as being this wonderful triumph, wasn't it? The culmination of 50 years of hard work, closing you down. So, they might have, they could have spun it like that. I know that you've been through a lot recently, but we've got some great news. We're closing your stake.
Well, they would say in trying times like this, unity is more important now than ever, and community in Christ is more important now than ever. And so, to strengthen your communities, we have consolidated the stakes. This is the growth we've all been waiting for, etc. PD?
I was just going to say they could have taken the British kind of tradition of having sister stakes. I know they couldn't call it sister stakes because they've got issues with sisters. They could have called them sibling stakes, because over here, every town has like a twin town somewhere in Europe. So you'll be driving through and you'll be like, oh, you're in Wandsworth. And it'll say like twinned with Güsselstedt Nafferdek in Germany. Sorry, it's just what came out, guys.
It's amazing pronunciation.
It's just
excellent.
I bet there's a place. But they could have said you are now like twinned stakes, and you will do all of your stuff together. Like you'll have stake conferences together. You'll get to know each other better. If one's in trouble, the other one will help out. I was just in a town called Hebden.
I think that's
Bridge.
a great idea.
Yeah, in a town called Hebden Bridge near in the north of England, and they had massive flooding in the year 2000, and there was a plaque that said that their twin town Schnob-Noffenoff helped pay to clear up all the flooding. And I'm like, well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's not just a ceremonial. Twin states.
Here's what you do.
Love that.
You twin stakes. But you'll say, welcome to Romford stake, twinned with Utah 783rd stake.
Yeah.
Or whatever, and then what you'll do is when that stake falls apart and, comes to be 30 members, then their high council, their bishopric, all of their important roles can all be fulfilled by members via Zoom from Utah who have got nothing to do in their own ward, because their own ward's so massive that they never get a calling.
Yes.
Maybe that's what they're doing in Romford Stake already.
I've solved it.
We've got all the solutions. They need to put us in charge.
You just have to make sure during your Temple Recommend interview that you kept your fingers crossed out of frame.
Fine. Okay.
Okay,
So,
I have a question.
Please, Jane. Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, can I just comment? And in the comments here, Nemo, someone has just mentioned the playing of the new God Save the King. And
All right.
for the first time, I'm wondering if the church is because it never changed in the hymn book from God Save the King. So it's what, 70 years behind. I'm wondering if in the new hymn book, when we get it out, I don't know, maybe the next couple of months, it's got God Save the Queen in it. I'm just curious if we're just going to play 70-year catch up here. But I guess I have a question, because as people then who are from Scotland, who are kind of observing what's happening there, I guess I'm kind of wondering, so why was he here? And that's my question for you guys. What was the point?
Well, we got it answered in Reading State Conference. I don't know what was said in yours, Peter.
He wasn't mentioned at all.
Oh, okay. Well, so we had another elder cook, funny that, who's a member of the presidency of the 70. He was there. And something that was really interesting, actually, was what he said about, he let something slip. Basically, he was talking about setting his alarm in the morning. He said, normally when I set my alarm, I get up straight away and I'm on with my day. He said, and traveling with Elder Cook, I've been getting up. He said, but this morning, it was Sunday, I woke up and I wasn't with Elder Cook. And it was just so peaceful. I was so relaxed, no stress.
Because he snores.
Because he's clearly not under the stress of feeling like he's being watched by his big boss man. Right? But you wouldn't want that to be said. You'd want it to be said that, traveling with Elder Cook is a joy and there's no stress at all, and he puts me at ease. Because all we've heard about the Queen in the news over the past week is how well she just puts people at ease, even though she is far more powerful than the people she meets with. She puts them at ease, and she's very good at that. But apparently, Quinton L. Cook will put you on edge for days on end, by the looks of this chap. So he said was that back in the olden days, and I've heard this statistic before. He said back in the olden days, the apostles used to travel around all the stakes. That used to what they do. They were essentially described as traveling high priests, right? That's how they're described sometimes in D&C. He gave that old trope of, if they were to do that now, you'd probably see an apostle once every 25 years because there's just so many stakes in the church. So he said what they have instead is they have coordinating councils. And those coordinating councils get visits from apostles more regularly. And normally the stake they go to gets a visit. And what he said was they decided, well, wouldn't it be nice if instead of just Hyde Park getting a visit, if they split up those that come along with him and all the sort of the stakes in the vicinity got a visit as well. That was the reasoning I heard from the mouth of Elder Cook Jr., which, as someone's very kindly points out in the comments, essentially is there's a twinning of cooks as well as stakes. Yeah.
Yeah, that was confirmed from a chat I had. Julian Jones, who was one of our stake presidents back in the day and taught me, he was like the CES coordinator when I was doing seminary. Lovely guy, really great, being a mission president and everything. He is now the secretary for the area presidency. And someone else was telling me that this was probably actually his idea, to actually get out of London and visit the other stakes a bit more. So that's cool. So that's why they could have said that instead of make everyone worry their ward's gonna get closed. But you know how it is.
How difficult would it have been if he really wanted to get out and see people, to have 3 conferences at different times and to go to each of them?
You'd think.
You know what I mean? He could have gone to one at 9 a.m., another one at noon, and another one at like
they could have done it quicker
5.
than that. They could have done it quicker than that. They would have sent him by helicopter.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine a helicopter landing on the lawn of your stake center and out walks Quinton L. Cook? Right?
They could afford Airwolf.
Like Donald Trump himself holding his hair down.
Yeah, he just comes out like this.
That's impressive.
And great reference.
And then
Peter,
Kit would pick him up and drive him to the door.
I'm sorry, Michael.
You're feeling very 80s today.
I'm sorry, Quinton. Yeah, there we go. So,
can I say something
away from
controversial?
Knight Rider. Yes, please. Yeah.
So I got into a bit of an argument with somebody recently. Okay, so
No one like you.
Oh no. So I got to be honest. I'm not a royalist. I've got nothing against the people. You know, I'm sure that she was absolutely lovely. I have no doubt, and the fact that she's died, you know, is as sad as any really nice person dying, and you know, obviously it's a big impact on her family and everything like that. So, you know, I don't mean to be in any way disrespectful when I say this.
Rebel scum.
To the Queen. But I was having a conversation and with somebody, and they were saying about I'm just going to be disrespectful about the King now, but I'm not really. So they were talking about King Charles, and they were saying, do you know what? I think he's going to make a good king. I think he'll be a good king. And I think they were kind of saying is that some people have criticised him in the past, but now he's king, and I think he's going to be a good king. And I just said, yeah, you think so? Yeah. So what does that mean? What does that mean that it'll be a good king? well, means that he'll go to all of the stuff that he's meant to go to. I think, well, so he's going to turn up. That's how he's going to be a good king, by turning up. I said, well, it's not. It doesn't make him stand apart, does it? The fact that he turns up for his job, And they said, well, it could be a lot worse. I mean, it could be his brother. And I'm like, what? He's going to be a good king because he's not a paedophile. You've really lowered the bar here, haven't you? You're really lowering the bar. And
there we're demonetized.
And normally you'd think, what's that got to do with Mormonism? But ... and he carry on.
Okay.
It's exactly the same in that I had no expectations because all they do is turn up. All they do is turn up. We all get excited because an apostle is coming over, and I mean, it is great that they kind of shared it out, because I know that the people in those wards would be really excited about that, and if they did come to their state, if it did go to their state conference, then they would have been especially excited. It's a really, really important thing to members of the church. But all they're doing is turning up. They haven't got any new messages. We'll wait forever to hear his great message about the future, because there isn't one. We'll wait forever. All they've got to do is turn up.
And that's what the Halloween rescue was like, wasn't it? That was clearly all they had. Yeah.
I'll just say, I'm not a royalist either. This is just the picture I had on the ceiling above my bed. So it was just only there just because I had it, right? And Charles lost me the minute he got in the fight with the inkwell. And I totally agree. If anyone doesn't know about the fight with the inkwell, it's too complicated to discuss. It's just funny. But I totally agree with you, Julian. Prophets today are caretakers of just craziness. They just have to kind of dumb down and say, no, there's not really that in that cupboard. I'll tell you what's in the cupboard, but you can't go in the cupboard. I'll tell you what's in there. And then every generation, what's in the cupboard gets even more and more acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
So, sorry, on you go.
Jane, then Laura.
No, you go.
Are you sure? So while I have the same sort of views, I guess, as you, Julian, and that are you playing a current function in our lives? And, not to sort of get into the whole monarchy side of things, simply because in Scotland, in the Central Belt in Scotland and in Ireland, it's a very, very controversial subject that there is no point in even beginning to address here. You guys can do your own research about as to why that is. However, I've been able to enjoy for the past maybe 10 days some incredible insights into some of the behind the scenes thing. When we get to Sunstone in October, oh my goodness, the stories I will have to share with you, they're hysterical. The active duty royals have actually, some of them are war heroes. Some of them have done incredible work on the ground in a military capacity. They're showing up in uniform for a reason. They have actually served. We've got in fact, there is a particularly incredible royal that, I won't even get into it, but that royal, oh my goodness, is the baddest ass person I've ever heard of in my life. If even the British Army are saying you're a badass, then we're talking about something good. And so I guess I'm kind of seeing it from a different perspective, that if someone has come up through the ranks and they've put the work in so that they've got that respect, that you really see and you really understand what's happening on the ground, then I'm going to listen, and you're going to command respect, and you're going to speak in the future from a point of view of having been there, and you can speak to the experiences of your peers and those who are actually really excited to hear from you. Unfortunately, what we're seeing from the top leadership is, as much as we're hearing that, all of these big issues are playing out in their own families and that they really do understand these issues, what we are saying is there's a huge disconnect by, why aren't you speaking about the things that are important to us? When you came to the UK, we're all waiting for state closures because we know how bad it is. Why aren't you coming to talk to us about how bad it is? Again, the British Rescue, the last time when they all sent, you know, the guys over here to hear their mission stories, when are you going to talk about what we need to hear?
Yeah.
Amen.
And I would say, I mean, when we get into some details about what actually happens at these meetings, you know, there were some pretty meaty issues addressed, but as we'll, you know, find out, not necessarily in a helpful way or in any different way. I think the elephants are always in the room. But I mean, if I just describe my experience, so our team one was Maidstone Stake, where I grew up, and Canterbury Stake, where I live now. I'm very unadventurous. I've lived in 3 wards, and they're all a 20-minute drive from each other. But it was like a massive reunion. It's the first time these stakes were split by President Hinckley in the 90s into the Maidstone and Canterbury Stake, and a couple of other wards added to each one. So it was probably the first time a lot of these people have been back together in the same room. So it was wonderful. It's like a massive family reunion. Everyone was chatting for ages afterwards. And I caught up with a lot of lovely people I adore who I haven't seen for a long time. So in that sense, it was great. You know, it's a really positive, happy vibe. But almost every family there that I know, they've had their kids leave. You know, that all or some of their children have left the church. So you're looking, and this is something I think my generation, I'm in my 50s. So I grew up, you know, I was born right at the beginning of the 1970s. So I've watched my parents and their generation start off with these weird little tiny pokey branches of nut jobs, turn them into wards, grow them, eventually kind of reach a critical mass just in time for me and my siblings, that we were kind of the first generation to have a really well organized seminary program, institute, travel around, great YSA stuff going on in Britain, and have a great time. We were growing up as the first generation of kids who hadn't kind of been indoctrinated in the racist segregation. You know, literally I was baptized an 8-year-old the year after 1978. We were multicultural, we were very positive and inclusive, and painfully slowly, with the usual ridiculous amount of waste and attrition, our mission program worked, and we turned these congregations into quite thriving large communities. And what's happened since the internet and the 90s and the deconstruction of a lot of the truth claims is that's just been eroded away. So I'm now going to these meetings and it's like the 1970s again. You know, there've been a few losses, but most of that first generation who stuck it out into the 80s are still there. They're incredible, but they've all been betrayed because nearly all of their children have left or are going to leave the church.
And so what was the attendance figure for where you were?
So it was big. I mean, it was actually quite large.
2 stakes, though,
Maidstone,
right?
yeah, exactly. Maidstone Chapel is humongous, and we filled 3/4 of it. So it's a big building. So it was very good in that sense. Though actually from my ward, you know, I would say only a quarter of the ward was there, and we're only 30 people. So you know, it was sparse in that sense. There weren't as many as there could have been. And it was certainly helped, you know, it'd have looked a bit terrible if it was just one or other of the stakes as usual. But these things are actually spoken to. I think we started off with the Maidstone Stake president, who said a desire to believe, brothers and sisters, not a desire to doubt. So he was channeling some of this jargon about you've got to choose to believe and want it, and not, and again giving the message that the reason people doubt is because they allow themselves to, they choose it, you know. And he's a lovely guy, he's reasonable. I love him to bits. I think his dad married me, I'm not sure. Anyway,
Very progressive.
After after the second wedding, it all blurs into one.
Go on, Julian.
But it was an example of how what the leaders say is channeled by the local members. They do start parroting this jargon. It does get into their heads. Yeah, go
Julian.
No, I just wanted to make a comment on what you just said there about the what was the phrase about doubting?
Yeah, it was a bit like the doubt your doubts thing. Yeah. He was just he was talking about a desire to believe. So he's talking about how there's a young guy who is now at the MTC, I think, who he counselled into coming back to church. And then he was talking about how his family have also been fellowshipping another person back. So they were talking about this rescue in a sense. He didn't use that word, but the idea of bringing people back. But he was kind of framing it as you've got to want to, you've got to want to believe. And this is the kind of thing Brad Wilcox was saying, and others have been saying.
And we've heard it so many times, haven't we?
So, yeah, a desire to believe, brothers and sisters, not a desire to doubt. And it's just so disparaging of the people who doubt. There's never an acknowledgement of why they're doubting, that they have really good reasons to, that the church has screwed them over in countless ways. Yeah,
it's also just another way of saying that don't question anything, don't question it. It's you could easily read, the sentiment of that. If you saw it in anything else, you'd ask questions, wouldn't you? And faithful members of the church, if they heard that same thing coming from the mouth of any other religion, it would ring alarm bells. That's all I wanted to make that point, is that
it's a really important point.
Not deciding to doubt or whatever. It sounds all nice, and because of with the example that we've got of doubting Thomas, it makes us think, oh yeah, doubting's bad. But really, what it's saying is, don't think critically. That's all it is. It's just another way of saying, don't think critically. Just accept everything that we've said.
We got a much nicer message from our state president. We got our state president saying he was telling the story about the Queen that has been doing the rounds, about the Queen and her security out walking around near Balmoral, and a couple of American tourists come along, and they
don't know who she is,
right? Yeah, they don't know who she is.
Yeah.
And so they're talking to her and asking her if she met the Queen, and she's like, "Oh, I haven't, but he has," pointing to the guy that's with her.
I remember.
And then they want to have a picture with the guy that's met the Queen, so they hand her their phone, and they get the Queen to take a picture with her companion at the time. So he was saying,
sorry. I'd have loved it if she'd have flipped the camera and just taken a selfie at the same time. Like,
it would have been great. He was talking about, these Americans probably kicked themselves when they got home and realized if they ever did, and certainly they will have now when it's been talked about all over the globe. And you got a couple of Americans in Elder and Sister Cook sat behind him, kind of shifting slightly. But he basically, what he said was, he related it to Jesus and said, we want to make sure that Jesus is the person we're taking the picture of and the focus of our lives, not the photographer. And I thought that was a nice way of at least making it about Jesus. So fair play to my state president for that. We had a few other speakers, but Peter, if you could just talk really quick about what your visiting Area 70 said and his wife.
Yeah. So, I mean, just before that, so the Canterbury Stake President spoke, and these are highly intelligent people, and he really spoke to how people often feel not good enough. So he said some of our saints feel they're not good enough under the bricks that have been laid upon them, and feel I'm just not celestial material, and they get overwhelmed. And he talks about the thing they often talk about now, that the choices between good and bad are kind of easy. The difficult ones are feeling overwhelmed with all the expectations of home and work and church, and it's choices between good things. But at no point did he suggest we should stop giving us the guilt trip of having too much to do. He kind of framed it as this amazing, courageous sort of spiritual journey that breaks us down until we can only but cry out for Christ to come and save us, that we have to feel overwhelmed by everything at once and have this grim experience and become desperate to. So there was a lovely message in the sense of Christ, we can't earn our salvation. It has to be Christ. Be perfect does not mean working ourselves in the ground as we try to make ourselves perfect, he said. But that's literally the opposite of what the First Presidency says. They're constantly going on about exact obedience on the covenant path, and you can't drop anything. You have to do it all perfectly and right. And Jorg, Klebing, Gatt, and all the others in conference, they're constantly teaching you. You can't pick and choose the good things to do. You have to do all of them. So that just really spoke to me about how, again, they can't criticize the leaders. They can't blame the leaders for the problems when people who have a faith crisis have woken up to the fact that the leaders are the problem and what they're saying. So they'll find every other possible way to frame it and work around that. And it usually involves more burdens for us and guilt trips, or just give it all to Jesus somehow in a lovely Christian way that the First Presidency don't say.
See, that's the
Just wanna
thing,
comment
Peter. I
on that.
think what
Yeah,
you said
yeah.
there about not feeling good enough, like what came to my head there was, okay, so they clearly see and they've had experience of people saying they don't feel good enough, but they don't seem willing to look at the why do people not feel good enough, because they don't want to admit that it's because of the church and the responsibility
church is
and
doing that to them.
all the stuff you've got on. They're not willing to address that issue, but they're happy to say, we have a lot of people
The
who feel
anxious
overwhelmed, and you know, because I've been there, and that is the reason, because there's all this expectation of how you should be and how good you should be as a faithful member of the church, but they're not willing to take that responsibility yet again on them for why people feel that way.
So just before I get to the GAs, just in passing, we had the new temple president and matron, the Anatuis, who are, I think, West African, but London Temple. So that's a milestone for us that we have Black West African temple president and matron. They were lovely, very, you know, they didn't speak for long.
Lovely couple.
Oh, cool. So we didn't get to know them particularly well because they were extremely brief. So we had Sister Jerry O. Whiting and Scott D. Whiting. And they talked a bit about how they were originally, this is their second global assignment to be, originally they were in Asia and Pacific and had some experiences there. She talked about how she was kind of packed off when they were creating a new stake in Micronesia to train the women leaders. And she said, I've never actually had a Relief Society calling, and there are all these much more experienced local sisters there. So very quickly in their meeting, these people were asking her for answers. And there was a capable and experienced local member, and she just handed over to her and said, no, listen to this lady. She knows what she's doing, you know. And I just thought that was cool. You know, it's acknowledging grassroots experience and your own whatevers. It also shows, in a sense, the crazy situation that wives of get put into. That you're the wife of the president, the wife of the temple president, the wife of the mission president, and you get given the women to fix, sort of thing, or to lead. Whereas why wasn't he the one training these female leaders if he's the one with the experience, whatever? But so it's this grey area, obviously, that women exist in the church, trying to do the best they can in dysfunctional situations. She kind of really, the main theme of her talk was addressing this sense of loss and from your children leaving. So they did talk to a collective experience. Their youngest daughter is 26. She's been in church for 10 years. So she was talking about how she manages this grief, and she called it grief. Unfortunately, I don't think her solutions are very great. She referenced some scriptures in the Book of Mormon that kind of give her hope. And which are 2 Nephi 10:2, which talks about that those who were lost will kind of come back or something, or be redeemed. And in 2 Nephi 10:9, nevertheless they shall be restored. You know, and this is some verses to Nephi, I think, during where he's being shown visions of the future of his people. And it's not talking about his own children, it's talking about the nation will kind of come back as a people. So she's kind of reading too much into that about it being her own children. And then the punchline is sorry, go on.
I was just going to say it might be pertinent to her because she might be, and I'm not saying that she may have her second anointing. So that sort of scripture may have certain.
We're meant to take the scriptures and apply them to our lives.
Well, absolutely. I mean, this is totally reasonable if you're desperate, and I mean, if your whole world, and we see this all around us in the church, is the whole point is to have an eternal family in heaven, and your kids have left. What do you even do with that? It's to you every day you wake up screaming in anguish because you've lost your child. The church took your child away from you, but you can't blame the church for that. So you can absolutely see people being desperate for these solutions. And then her punchline was D&C 31:2, which is talking to Thomas B. Marsh, saying that if he endures his afflictions, eventually his children will believe. Now, Thomas B. Marsh famously left the church for a long time a few years later. He was eventually rebaptized. But I was just like, you lovely lady, you're kidding yourself. We've already been through this repeatedly in the church, this idea that if you're sealed or something, your children can't stray far and they will come back, and she's looking for little glimpses of that. That's not what these scriptures are about, and the promises made to that guy absolutely didn't happen. I mean, I don't know how many of Thomas B. Marsh's children ended up active Mormons after growing up being anti-Mormon. And it's do a bit more research, but she really clings on to that. These scriptures give her hope. She feels there's a promise there, and this is a reckless thing that the general authorities over the years, as we and others have discussed before, keep promising people in this situation, that your comfort when your kids leave the church is they will eventually come back. And of course it's the world's fault. So she talked about how she wants her daughter to still look to Christ for her life and not the world. And at no point was there any consideration of she probably left because of the church. It's what the leaders are doing and saying, and the culture is what is driving the kids away. And there was at no point was there any component. She's just sitting in misery, anxiety, grief that her child has left, and holding on to these scriptures as the vague hope that they will somehow return. And
so before you go on to you go on to her husband, I just want to talk through some of what we heard at Reading, which was the legend that is Elder Stewart, who we.
So what's his calling now?
He's an Area 70. He's just one of the Area 70s. He's a legend. But he was our dear friend from the closure of Litchfield Stake. He was the one tasked with reading all the list of names. He was the one that was
guy. We like him.
Yeah, smiley guy. And he was happy and smiley today. And he was talking about how he feels intimidated by spending time with apostles, and he's always scared of what questions they're going to ask him. Was what he was talking about today. And so he said basically what he did is he ran off to Five Guys with the YSA or with the young adults after the devotional, rather than going to the swanky hotel and having the meal that he was meant to be having with Elder Whitting and with the other with the cooks and with Quintonel Cook. Rather than doing that, he went with the youth to Five Guys, had a strawberry milkshake, he tells us, and while he was there he thought, oh no, I probably ought to be at the hotel, but I'm having a good time here. So he stuck it out. Fair play to the man.
And he traded his future apostleship for a strawberry milkshake.
Mess of pottage. Good for him.
Laura, you're enjoying that story. What do you think of that?
I just think, a bit of humility, a bit of self-deprecation goes a long way. I don't know if it's just our little island that feels that way. I don't think so. I think, if you can humanize yourself, if you can at least behave like you understand what the lowly people feel, it's going to go a long way. We have a tendency as members to be in awe of people at the top. Hierarchy and a ranking structure presses on all of our buttons. So when somebody is willing to, someone who's above us almost, is willing to call that out and say, look, this affects me as well. I think it is worth something. I think it's worth further discussion on what we do with that, whether it's okay to have that power dynamic around. But I like that. It shows humility. I think he understands delivery. I think he understands it.
So the other thing he said was that he was called in to see Elder Bednar one time, and he thought, "Oh no, Elder Bednar can see into me. He can see the truth. He's going to ask me questions." And then he said Elder Bednar asked his wife questions, and he said, "That's it, brethren. When they ask your wife a question, you're done for." because she will be honest. And he asked, what do they like to do for fun? And his wife said, oh, we don't have time. We have no time for that. We're too busy. And he talked about feeling really, feel like he'd been a bad husband. And that his wife, you know, he confided over the stand that his wife really was struggling with, you know, essentially being his husband in terms of his calling and his position. He validated that experience, and he said he then took time to make sure that they did things together, and that you know, his wife could have some fun. Those were the words he used. So it's not like, oh, so that my wife could have spiritual experiences or anything like that. It's like, no, so my wife could enjoy herself. Laura?
How interesting that Elder Bednar was there when he said that. I hope that Elder Bednar was listening, because when Elder Bednar was asked a question about how he could be better, he put his wife on the stand and got her to answer the question. I don't know if there was a conference somewhere where someone said, how can you give me an example when you could have done better as an apostle or something like that? I'm paraphrasing. You'll find the link. Maybe we'll find it and put it in there. Do you remember where it was?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly, but it is on YouTube. You know, it's almost like he was asked, can you, Elder Bednar, can you give an example of when you've had to be, you know, you've had to be humble or something? And he's gone like I'll get Sister Bednar to answer this.
Show humility, something like that. And he put his wife on the stand, and bless her heart, she had to go up there and self-deprecate herself. Yeah. So for him to be answering or sharing how he can do better for his wife, it's lovely. I really like that. The idea is not just, like you said, this idea of, you know, helping his wife to become more spiritual.
And it's also interesting that
that's important.
Bednar didn't say, oh, well, then you need to do better for your wife. It was only on reflection going away. It was only on this sort of internal reflection of Elder Stewart's that he realized that, you know, it pressed at his heart that he wasn't doing good by his wife. Elder Bednar didn't go, oh, well, you need to sort that out.
But I'm sure Elder Bednar went away and thought, I also need to do that.
Yes, possibly.
Elder Bednar is angry at life because he has no earlobes. At General Conference, when he stands up, everyone check it out. His ears go straight into his neck. Now, there is no problem with having no earlobes. I have nothing against people with no earlobes. But when you make it your life's mission to be pissed off at everyone with lovely earlobes, it's not on.
I refuse to reveal my ears. They are a matter of secrecy and great debate upon the internet. So
my children saw Nemo on like a private chat, and they were like, "He's got ears."
So put it in the comments. No one say anything. Put it in the comments.
If anyone's watching Rings of Power,
Yep. He's
hiding in the comments. Have I got conjoined earlobes? Yes or no? I want to know what you think. I'll put a poll on my community tab. Okay. Other than that, we had the chatter about mission stories and the usual sort of missionary work's good. We had a story from
there were charades, show and tell.
We've lost you, Nemo.
It was just us.
Oh, we'll keep chatting.
Is it a song? 3 syllables.
It's a dramatic pause. Film.
Syllable rhymes with
2 words. Sounds like.
Peter, didn't Elder Cook say something that was groundbreaking today?
Well, yes. I mean, we could. I was going to save that for the punch.
So yeah, one sec. So I'm back. Am I back? Yeah. Oh, so we had a story about missionary work.
Pretended that he wasn't.
Yeah.
We had a story about a missionary who turned up, and he was like, "Oh, because this guy was talking about when he was a mission president, because of course he was." He was saying, "Oh, right, okay. I've got this missionary coming in," and he says, "I'm really loving the Book of Mormon. I'm really loving reading it. I'm at 2nd Nephi. I'm having a really good time." He says, "Oh, okay. How many times have you read it before?" He said, "Oh, this is the first time, but I'm really enjoying it." All this sort of stuff. And he said, "Oh, well, you're going to need to read the whole thing because you're going to have to testify of it and all this sort of stuff, yada, yada." And he said, and I went straight to the transfer board and I popped him right next to a missionary that I knew the Book of Mormon really well. And that story on the surface is a bit innocuous, but then you think, I always thought that the mission president's getting down and praying about who he's putting with who, and these transfers are really systematically thought out. Yeah. Turns out, no, a missionary just hasn't read the Book of Mormon. So he's like, right, you can go with him. That's all we got.
You just reminded me of the story. Right, I remember training someone on my mission, a lovely lad who, clearly it didn't. I wouldn't have been surprised if he hadn't read the Book of Mormon. He didn't know a lot. And I just remember talking to him about the idea that a third of the host of heaven had been cast out. And he's like, well, where were they cast out to? And I'm like, well, they're here, they're all around us. And he pissed himself. He goes, yes. It's like these. Where? I think he thought he was going to be attacked.
Bless him.
You should.
A rough area.
You can't go on a mission without being terrified about ghosties being after you, because you're doing the Lord's work. That's,
go on,
it was a tradition.
Rough area.
No, that's yeah.
Well, I was going to say you should have told him that every time you get deja vu, that is one of your spirit brothers entering your body.
Oh, that's horrific.
For the rest of his life.
That's horrific. Why would you say that to someone?
I bet you did. There's a story here, PD. Did you do that to someone? You've done it to your own children, haven't you?
No, but one of the best ones I heard was from my dad, and he really got these American elders didn't understand the road markings here in the UK. We lived in a bike area, and they said to my dad, what are the double yellow lines for? And he told them that's the bike lane, and you have to cycle inside the double yellow lines. Now the gap between the double yellow lines is about 3 or 4 inches, and these elders, the amount of times they fell off hitting like grates and curbs and different things trying to cycle.
That prank existed on my mission. It was done to American elders on my mission.
Oh my God,
that is beautiful. Okay, so refocus, regroup. Honestly, my microphone
here's a cute thing. So
we've
Sister Laurie,
Peter, before you start, we need to get this tight. We need to know exactly what was said by Elder Cook.
So a cute thing from Sister Laurie before you get there, because we're all about Ukraine, is they were serving in Ukraine and were trying to get visas to get into Russia, and then you've been researching the boundary changes, and they were doing sort of Zoom conferences with the Relief Society in Kiev, and one of the things the state presidents there, Relief Society president, said there was she's really learned to appreciate the war chapters in the Book of Mormon, because they teach how to be a Christian in a time of war. So I thought that was awesome. These are great people. I mean, the point here is these are just adorable, nice people. Some of them are assholes, but these ones were lovely. And my people are lovely. These leaders I've grown up around, their family, they're beautiful people who just give and give and give. But they're not going to save the church. Everything they're doing is futile. By having these meetings and not addressing the real issues, and not being willing to challenge the leaders, and not being able to see or listen to why their kids are actually leaving, and then bring that into mainstream church and deal with it. This is the cognitive dissonance. It's like, oh, that was lovely, everyone's nice, everyone went home happy. And next time, another 10% of them won't be there because of what's online, because they're being lied to.
But Quinton L. Cook must have said something, right?
Are teaching the opposite. So Quentin is famous, or you've made him famous, Nemo, for claiming to have seen Jesus. So he keeps using this phrase, I have seen the face of the Lord and I've heard his voice. And he's used that a few times. And that's my wife. I'm getting there, babes. Do
not rush, Peter. Peter, what can they do? They're going to throw you out? Come on, take your time. You build that story.
I'm not scared of you excommunicating me. I wasn't there, but from two different sources, he said this at the leadership training in London, and he said it today at the Romford Stake meeting. And I was chatting to one of my buddies, who's a black guy who's, you know, had lots of experience in leadership in our stake, or in my old stake, who was there at the leadership meeting, and he was describing in awe, you know, it's like, I always want to be right up, you know, in the face of these apostles, and I wonder what have they seen, you know, he totally believes all this. And then he said this, you know, and he describes it. I wasn't even asking for what Quentin said. And he said, you know, I've seen the face of the Lord and I've heard his voice. And then he was really funny because he said, and I want to know, was it a black face or a white face? I just thought that was brilliant. Because it's like, you know, there's never a follow-up question. You know, one day someone's got to say, tell us, what race was he then? You know,
What does he
like,
look
or
like?
are you being metaphorical? Do you mean I saw the face of Jesus in the face of a child, or in a summer's morning? You know, it could all be metaphorical. And they just gaslight people with these games. And I'm standing next to this guy who I adore, and he's clearly being played really easily, you know. And what do you do? This is the dilemma of when you've kind of realized this is all nonsense and manipulative crap, you know.
Sorry,
Just do
Peter.
you
This has
tell them?
descended into anarchy.
Sorry.
Apologies.
This
What?
is my Palestinian Jesus.
Oh my god!
But I don't know who that's a picture of.
That's Arafat.
That's Arafat. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Looks like
Okay.
goblin
There you go.
wobbling.
Perfect timing. Well done.
Perfect timing.
Um,
Okay, so that
and
we
but-
can get
but this is
confirmation
the
next
thing.
time from Elder Cook whether that is indeed what
Yeah,
Jesus looks
yeah.
like. or
But
not.
this is the thing. Then this speaks to what are we doing here right now? Why are we
Yes.
raining on the parade?
Mhm.
Why are we here saying, like, criticizing these people? If you're a typical TBM watching this, is, oh, they're just looking to be nitpicky about things that are just, you know, it's not fair. These were lovely people. I felt good about their talks. They're nice. They're just, and they did re-emphasize for us as well that the area goal is for everyone to come to know Jesus Christ. We can't argue with that, but it's so vague, you know. And why is that anything new? But so what do you do? Because what they're doing isn't working and it is causing them pain. And they're talking about this pain. They know that, you know, you've got this poor sister who's amazing talking about how she is living with grief and with anxiety about her daughter who left the church. And there's all these lovely leaders sort of in little feedback loops that, oh, if you just, you know, persist or see the burden you're carrying and suffering as your chance to be like Jesus and have a Gethsemane experience rather than maybe take some of those bricks off their back. So what you have to make these nice people uncomfortable. If we're gonna have truth prevail, if they're going to in any way wake up in time to stop losing all their children and make the church tolerable long term, we have to go up to really nice people we care about and love and say, I'm sorry, that's bullshit. You are being played. They're robbing you. All these problems you've got, they made them, most of them. They have made your problems worse. They've created the problem and claim to offer the solution, but the solution is never enough. And your suffering continues. You are carrying around so much anxiety that everyone who leaves the church describes a huge weight lifting. And it's not a weight of responsibility and in the sense of goodness. It's not a weight of good values. They don't become evil to stop caring about the world or people. They find they can get rid of the stupid guilt trips and care about the world and people far better than with the burden that the church has placed on them mentally.
And that is perfect,
and-
Peter. That segues us
And that's
into
what we're doing.
that
Yeah.
perfectly segues us into they weren't able to help us as leaders. They
Yeah.
came over here. They
Yeah.
didn't really give us much other than maybe us feeling good that they came. So the question then is, they can't help us. So what are we doing to help ourselves? This is the first time the Britvengers have been together in a little while. So I just want to talk really quick about what we're all up to at the moment. Let everyone know what we're doing, and what's to come in future. So we'll start with PD. We'll work our way around the screen, and then I'll finish up. PD, what you up to, bud?
Well, first of all, guys, I had to take down that Palestinian Jesus because my wife was upset that was from the ceiling above her side of the bed.
Oh my god!
But
Right.
no, I've had a little bit of a break because life just got really busy. But we'll be back, and I've been gathering information from the blogosphere so that we can have a new game show type show coming up with a bit of family fortunes going on. So we're looking for teams for the family fortunes, and that will also be happening live at Sunstone. So
there we go.
That's cool. But yeah, just more of the same temple stuff. Speaking about the temple expose, we are up to the first token of the Aaronic priesthood. Obviously, we don't talk about the tokens specifically, but we're at that point in the ceremony. If anyone wants to look, you can check it out on the channel, and going through the missionary discussions, and that's it. All fun.
Awesome. Jane, what are you and Alana up to?
Well, Alana and I have been super busy. We've had to take a couple of weeks off just to cope with the pure volume of work that's happening. People reaching out in the background to let us know what's going on with them. Okay, we have a massive issue with safeguarding in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We have been focusing on that for many months on the podcast, to the point where it's become sort of one of the biggest things that we've ever done. We not only wanted to sort of highlight stories and lived examples, but we wanted to make sure that we were offering constructive things that we can do at a grassroots level, at a national decision-making level, and also at a top church leadership level. So what we're doing is highlighting the fact that safeguarding is not happening sufficiently in the church. We have a petition. Alana's going to chuck the link up to the petition online, asking for background or DBS checks for all volunteers. Now, the other thing is that the team who are working on this, Alana, Sarah, and I, we're all members of the church. Sarah and I are active members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and members of the church have been very, very responsive to this. We also have an open letter, and we've got all of that information up on our website, which is 21stcenturysaints.org. You'll be able to find that in the show link too. Now, if it's okay, what I'd like to do, Nemo, if you don't mind, could I take 1 minute just to read the open letter, because this has been co-signed by the very best of Mormon bloggers, famous faces, and we're also asking you guys, if you would like to co-sign our open letter, we're asking that you get in touch and let us know. So we are saying,
I'll allow it.
An open letter to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. As individuals and organisations who have an interest in the welfare of children, youth and vulnerable adults in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we have serious concerns about safeguarding procedures within the church. The recent Associated Press article has caused a great deal of concern from within and outside of the Latter-day Saint faith community. We believe the church's response to the article is wholly insufficient and does not alleviate the concerns raised by the AP article. Basic safeguarding procedures are not being followed within the church. Congregants who work directly and closely with children, youth, and vulnerable adults are not subject to criminal background checks. No safeguarding information is on display in our buildings. There is no training for members of leaders in the church, with the exception of an extremely poor and wholly insufficient video which lasts for less than 30 minutes. The Handbook of Instructions contains insufficient procedural advice. This is not safeguarding. 1, we ask that you ensure that all members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints who will or who may work with children and vulnerable adults be subject to criminal background checks. 2, we ask that bishops and any lay members report suspected cases of abuse to the relevant authorities immediately in all areas of the world. And 3, we ask you to ensure that safeguarding procedures are brought to an acceptable and ideally high standard. We would like to make you personally aware of the specific instances where people in the church throughout the world have been harmed by these failings. Currently, we would draw your attention to the ongoing Scottish child abuse inquiry, where some of these issues have been courageously spoken of by survivors. We offer to meet with you in order to share with you the lived and ongoing experiences of those who have been impacted most. Presidents and elders, we testify to you that they are the most distressing things that we have ever heard. We believe that you understand the seriousness of these issues and the urgency with which we need you to act. Sincerely, 21st Century Saints. Now, our co-signers are the Britvengers, Nemo the Mormon, Laura and Julian Heath, Mormon Civil Wars Peter Bleakley, Priesthood Dispatches. We also are joined by Bill Reel, Radio Free Mormon, Mormon Neurodivergence Marco Fuentes, Drew Hunter, social commentator, Natasha Helfer, Maven Brody, Rami Umptum Ruminations, our Mormon Freedom Fairy, Lynn Bleakley, Katie Moore, social media influencer, Brian Bracey, who's an activist. We also have Debbie Coleman, Donnell Allen, Mark D. Nielsen, Susan York, and Lucy Ramirez. If you would like to co-sign the open letter, we would invite you. Please get in touch through our website. We have had an incredible response. Church leaders are listening, and already, hey, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the UK, we are watching, you're listening. Thank you. We appreciate it. So we're excited to tell you what that looks like in the next few weeks.
Excellent. Alana,
Marvelous.
what do you add to that?
Amen.
Thank you.
No, just obviously it's a great work, and I think it's something that is really important. I think, you know, the more names we can get on this petition, the better, because we want to hold the church to account for the safeguarding of children, and that's what it's about for me more than anything, is just to protect the vulnerable. And I think the sooner the church wake up to this, the better. Obviously, we've had some experiences that we've heard from various members who are having discussions with their bishops and stake presidents, and they are going really well, that bishops are willing to listen and look at making changes. So I think if we can all be doing that, if we're able to have those conversations, to then have it coming from the leadership, because as you know, it can't come from us, it has to go through the ranks. So I think if we can have these conversations with our bishops and stake presidents, for them to then push that forward to the people at the top, and I just hope and pray that they really listen.
And just to jump in, actually, if you want to be able to do that yourself, we have also got set and template letters you can use for inspiration. We're asking you to contact your stake leaders, local leaders, decision makers, policy makers, and area and stake presidents. We've got them all on the website. So we'd encourage you to take a look there. And I see in the comments, people are just asking how they can sign the letter. All you got to do is just pop us a message on our social media channels or go to the website. There's a form you can fill in there.
There we go.
Yep. I was just quickly going to say that I've seen a few people, the link that I've got is one of those crazy long links for the petition, and it wouldn't let me post it on YouTube. So if you go to our website, it is within the website that you can click to sign the petition.
Yeah, and that's 21stcenturysaints.org.
Yeah. Excellent.
I think it's really important because Christ said many things while he was here in the New Testament and whatnot. There's a lot of things the church gets very hung up on that Christ had nothing to say on the matter of. You know, Christ had nothing to say on the matter of multiple piercings. What he did have something to say about was how you should treat children. And so if the church is failing to live up to that admonition, then we need to let them know that that's what's happening. So thank you very much. Peter, what have you been up to?
Yeah, kind of responding similar situations. I'll just add to what was there that the Canterbury stake has gone ahead and made its own safeguarding policy, which is much closer to professional, and they've had that for a couple of years now. It includes annual training by professionals. It includes police background checks for everyone working with children. Its only caveat is it doesn't go as far as insisting on no one-to-one interviews with young people, but certainly there's an encouragement to have another adult in the room and that sort of thing. So local people can innovate. My stake president doesn't want to become some kind of rebellious cause celeb, but he has very kindly and generously said that if other state leaders want to reach out to him, he's very happy to share with them our template, our policy that they can then clone if they want to in their own stake. And it's really good because it's had people with professional training and experience contribute to formulating it based on what we experience in our workplaces. And it's definitely the best thing in the church at the moment. So that's an opportunity if your local leaders actually want not to have to create something from scratch. They can just get it straight off the shelf from Canterbury Stake. In response to the Associated Press article in which Michael Resendez, who basically blew the cover off the child abuse cover-ups in the Catholic Church in America, he is now turning his attention to the LDS Church, and it's not a one-off. He's following up with other articles and persisting. So this is just the beginning. This is the spotlight moment for our church. So I've ended up adding a lot of that to episode 10D of Mormon Civil War, which got released today. So it's hot off the press. Woo! 6 hours, 50 minutes. Just think of it as 2 stuck together. I had to keep adding to it because more amazing things happened. You couldn't make it up. Honestly, it's quite a wild ride. But also in there, I've tried to give voice to other podcasters. So Gina Colvin, who kind of gave me my first podcast interview, is winding up A Thoughtful Faith and is doing some amazing kind of swan song episodes, just reflecting on her experience and time in the church. And she's segueing to Community of Christ. Drew Hunter, who you've mentioned, Alana's relative, who's amazing, has started doing some really intelligent and thoughtful analysis and little YouTube things. So I've, with his permission, included big chunks of that in that episode, so you can get to hear him. And a new podcast called Latter-day Struggles, which is amazing, by Valerie Haymaker, who is a relationship therapist. Just a therapist. And she and other therapists and sometimes her husband discuss the stuff we do, all the issues we're about. They do it in really good, powerful, highly intelligent, punchy short form. So the episode's around half an hour, 20 minutes, whatever. And she's just cranking them out. So she also gave me permission to include some of their dialogue. So the community of people talking about the same issues and responding to them and speaking up is really growing, and it's wonderful. So it's becoming more of a movement.
And
so
where
check
can
out
we
that
find
episode.
Where can we find
So
that
all of that is
community, Laura
on
and Julian?
Well, over to you.
Sorry, what was the question?
I said, where can we find
In
that
Birmingham.
community that Peter is talking about?
No, sorry.
All right.
No,
Okay.
joking.
So we are very busy at the moment.
Our head's gone, that's right.
Yeah, we are.
We're less than 3 weeks to Sunstone UK in-person event.
Yeah, which I'm going to be bold and say, and I don't mind being corrected and told that I'm wrong here, but I'm going to be bold and say that it is probably going to be the biggest gathering of people talking about Mormonism and kind of people that from under that come under the Mormon umbrella, including people that have left the church, because let's face it, ex-Mormons are the fastest growing kind of Mormon group at the moment. And it's going to be the biggest gathering of those people probably outside of the US, and and the best gathering of those people this side of Earlobes. So it really is going to be a fantastic event. We've got so much going on. We've had to write it down because if we don't, we'll forget.
Yeah, brace yourself for the woodenness now.
Okay,
ready.
So it's the weekend of the 7th, 8th. Oh, sorry.
No, you did it. You got it right.
Got it right, yeah.
Friday the 7th, yeah.
Weekend of the 7th, 8th and 9th of October. It's going to be held at the Greswold Arms pub in Solihull.
It's kind of like, if you don't know what it's like, it's how would you describe it? It's kind of like a posh harvester. Would that be fair? Kind
For
like
our American audience, yes, it's like a posh harvester.
Yeah, sorry.
Olive Garden.
Applebee's.
Yeah.
It's a posh Applebee's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a nice venue. It's a nice venue.
And it's also just over the road from the site of the Birmingham Temple.
Possibly. Anyway, so
egg it.
Friday to Sunday, we're starting in the late afternoon, early evening on the Friday. We're going to have Lindsay Hanson-Park, who is the executive director of Sunstone in the US, and she's coming over. Brian Buchanan and her are going to be doing Sunstone. They are podcasters for Sunstone podcast and Sunstone History podcast. They're going to be doing a live episode there with us, and she's going to be one of our keynote speakers and talking about polygamy. We're going to have Marco Marquez, who was there at Sunstone last year. I don't know if anyone's watched him. He's a man of many talents, and he can wiggle his hips like no other, and he's going to show us how to swing and lindy hop. So yeah, bring your hips with you, don't leave them at home. And that's on Friday. On Saturday, we've just got heaps of presentations, so we will go through them. We've got John Hamer, who's going to kick us off. John Hamer, amazing historian, map maker, and so much more.
He's got to do this more briefly, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
We'll be here forever.
Okay, so he's
we've
coming
got John Hamer.
Succession, talk about succession crisis. We've got Nathan Taylor. We've done a couple of interviews with him recently. He's talked about his links to Mormonism, fundamental Mormonism in the UK. He's going to be talking more about the group that he was with and the AUB and his experience with them. We've got Andrew Bolton and Elroy Henriksen, who are going to be talking effective and constructive dissent. Marco Fuentes is going to be talking Mormon neurodiversity. The Thrive lot are going to be doing a panel session with us. Charles Lawson is going to be doing a presentation on the root of the tree. Hannah Bardsley is going to be talking about paganism. We have got discussions on post-Mormon parenting. We've got body and sex positivity. We've got art therapy. We've got therapeutic poetry and communal line printing. We've got lino printing. We've got Mormon Dungeons and Dragons. Chris Dyson's going to be doing.
Sorry, you do need to pause after that. We've got Mormon Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, with a special guest dungeon master that will be joining us for the event.
Is it going to be like the Stig? We're going to like cover him.
I think so.
Yes, we've got counsellors there. We've got talking about Mormon identity. That's our David Shepherd. We did an interview with him recently. We've even got an apostle in there that you can chuck questions at, and he's very easy going. In fact, we had a comical moment last year where he was involved in the mix, and it wasn't until about 3/4 of the way through the conversation that anyone even knew that he was an apostle. He's a brilliant guy. And we've got our lovely Britvengers that are going to be there doing parts for us. So PD already alluded that you're going to do something around family fortunes and a bit of entertainment for us on the Saturday night.
Oh yeah, me and Sister PD, we've got some stand up for you. We're going to do some we're going to start our own little root branch of Mormonism that you can all join, 20% tithing, but you're all going to feel it. And then we're going to do some eternal family fortunes. Nice. Mormon based.
Amazing. 21st Century Saints, what are you going to be doing?
Well, Alana, we were we kicked off some practice for the weekend last night. We were having birthday celebrations, right? What are you most looking forward to?
Partying, karaoke.
Right. So Alana's there for the karaoke and the 80s theme party. Absolutely. We are really excited for we need a break. You see, we are leaving home. We're taking a couple of extra days and possibly may never return. So PD, please just, bring your A game here because we really need some dancing and some chill time. Apart from that, we will be working. We are going to be, I think we're hosting the LGBTQ panel. So we are really excited for what that's going to look like. And that'll be shaped by the LGBTQ community themselves. We will be presenting on how we end every show with blessing journeys. So we're going to talk a little bit about the history of that and the British Isles, a little bit of sort of, paganism, real traditional prehistorical stuff. And we're going to bring that up to what that could look like today for members of and transitioning members of the church. And then, we'll be having a chat at the end of the weekend. We'll be hanging out with you all pretty much the whole time. So we're excited to meet everyone.
Thank you.
Hey.
Looking forward to it. Mm-hmm. Peter?
Yeah, so I'm actually an artist and an art teacher, so I'm going to be doing a session all about Mormon art. I'll show some of my work. We've got several other artists around the world who have given me permission to include some of theirs. So we're just going to talk about how people who are having faith crisis or nuancing up their Mormonism or post-Mormonism are actually expressing these ideas and their thoughts and processing it through different art forms. So it's a whole different kind of non-historical nerdiness look at the culture and creativity that these experiences can produce.
Thank you.
Excellent.
And Nemo?
What date is it again?
Don't ask it. Well, you have been getting it right.
No. Okay.
You're coming.
I'm going to be there. Apparently, I've been told. I'm going to be there in a few capacities. I'm going to be there for Thrive. I'm going to be there for myself. I'm going to be doing a presentation, the subject matter of which is to be confirmed. So we'll see what the next 3 weeks cook up. But I'm going to be there mainly just to spend time with you lovely lot and everyone that turns up. I'm going to be there to, get involved in the community, just to, just to be there with everyone. It's a bit of time off for me in some ways, so I'm very excited for it. It's going to be good.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to it. On the like we said, we had all these presentations and we've got the discussion groups, and they're really great to kind of, particularly the discussion groups. I think between Sunstone UK in-person event and the Thrives, they're really building a bit of a community amongst people that are kind of familiar with each other and trust each other, and in some respects like a little ward almost, where we can share experiences and help each other. And I think they have been beneficial. And then you get to the evening time where people then have a therapeutic evening together. And that, I do say therapy, because when we had Thrive, the karaoke, and I know karaoke isn't everybody's thing, but this is a different type of karaoke.
This is special karaoke. This is communal karaoke.
It is ritual.
It's singing for serotonin. It is, and it's pure ritual, and you will love it. You will absolutely love it.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So come along. If you're in the UK, and you haven't bought a ticket, then get a ticket. Come along. Yeah. If you're not in the UK, still come along. Make the journey. It is worth it. You won't regret it. It is going to be fantastic. Absolutely. Nemo, always promises that he'll give away free hugs to anybody that that comes along.
Will give away free hugs.
PD said that he'll go to second base. There really is no excuse not to come. It's going to be fantastic.
Can we? I know that you guys. I know that this is sort of wrapping up time, but it was through Sunstone that we all got together. That we, in fact, this is the anniversary this weekend of our first coming together as the group that would had sort of become the Britvengers. Do you remember the Friday night when we were all in the same room together last year? Well, Natasha Helfer was given the keynote speech. Does someone want to share that with the audience, because it was hysterically funny?
I feel like I'm in some ways responsible for some irreverence that took place that evening. And it might have something to do with the fact that me and Alana had met before and used to participate in church musical productions together. So me and Alana have known each other for a bit longer than some of the other Britvengers. And I know how to make Alana crack up.
And PD, it was you and it was PD. You started it.
Jane, I'd only known you in person for about 5 minutes and you offered to take me to your room. That's all I'm saying. So,
Yeah.
But we're not a rowdy lot, I promise.
If Charlie's listening, mate, when the cat's away, she likes to play.
We were trying to be very responsible, listening, like obedient people to the wonderfulness of Natasha Helfer. We were all extremely excited to hear. And I have no idea what she was speaking about, because it just turned into, I don't know, an episode of Carry On Britvengers. The word, I don't know, the most simple word just sent us into fits of irreverent giggles, and we were like children. So yeah, that was a year ago this weekend.
There you go. So this endeavor is a year old. I hope 130 of you at least aren't sick of it yet. So, it's all going well.
And they're throwing money at you. This is good.
They're throwing money at us. Yeah, it's excellent.
So there is quite a few people that are coming now. The numbers are going up quite quickly, but there are still tickets available. So if you are on the fence and you think you might come, then do look into it.
Get off the fence. Get a ticket.
Oh yeah, and especially if you're on your own and you're not sure if you would like to come. We met loads of people who had come to Sunstone for the first time on their own. Sarah Elizabeth became one of our dearest friends immediately. Everyone is so welcoming, and you're going to meet your people there. So yeah, if you're thinking about it, yeah.
As my dear old dad would say, sitting on the fence just gives you splinters in your bum. So stop sitting on the fence, especially if you're in Europe, particularly, and you can make the journey. Get yourself over here. Come join in. We're trying to build up the wider European community as well. I've been traveling around to different European capitals. A few Thrive events are upcoming. We're looking at Thrive in Zurich. We're looking at Thrive in Scandinavia, to be confirmed whether that's Norway or Sweden. We're looking at Thrive in the Netherlands and Thrive somewhere in Spain. So I'm going to have a busy year of travel. Oh, and Italy. Sorry. Thrive Milan will be coming up at some point.
I will be there.
So, we're trying to build this European community, and we've got the luxury here in the UK of knowing each other all the way around. So all over this island, and we've got quite a strong membership of the church here. So that necessitates then quite a strong community. So we want to share that with you all. So please come enjoy it, be involved in it, and that's all I'll say about that. And I think that's the next. That's it. That's all we need to say. That is the state.
One more thought.
Oh, go on then, Peter. I'll allow it.
Thank you. So the take home from the last British rescue last Halloween was that Elder Holland stood in Hyde Park Chapel and basically admitted they've all had the second anointing with quite specific detail. This week, Radio Free Mormon did an episode about how the church is now kind of withdrawing some of its miracle claims, that the new edition of Saints has knocked on the head 3 major things that used to be foundational for our sense of the ongoing interventions of God. One of them being that the Saints of St. George were never promised by Lorenzo Snow that they would have rain if they paid tithing, and the harvest that year was terrible. It just didn't happen. It was kind of made up by one of his sons in an article later and put in the film, but there's no historical document or record of any of that, so that is now out of the narrative in the New Saints book. The other was also because of this son making stuff up later, the story that Lorenzo Snow saw Jesus Christ standing on a platform of gold in the temple when he was praying about whether to form a new first presidency after the death of the previous, and that he allegedly told this to his granddaughter, and that story has just been repeated all our lives. That also is now nowhere to be found in the accounts of that period of the church history because it just didn't happen. So does this mean that Quentin Cook is the last general authority since Jesus Christ who has specifically claimed to have seen the face of Jesus Christ? There may be some others a while ago, but we just had that guy tell us that he has 2 days in a row here in little old England. He's seen the face of the Lord. He's heard his voice. And what we need everyone to remember to do is next time he says that, ask the follow-up question. Was it a black face or a white face? What's the race of the face? Tell us about the face. Is it a metaphor, or is it really like a person you saw? All we need is for people to start doing the single follow-up question. And if it's true, he'll explain. And if not, the whole thing unravels quite quickly. We got to stop being silent about the nonsense. So that's a challenge for everyone.
Always ask the follow-up question. I second
the follow-up
that
question.
Advice. Always ask the follow-up question.
Yeah.
Okay, if that's true, then I want to know this. Okay.
And if you come to Sunstone UK, there is a chance that you might see Jesus.
Oh, yes.
He hasn't
and hear his voice.
like it.
No, but I'd say it's equally as plausible as
We'd probably let him in though.
cook seeding.
There we go. Right. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this evening. Thank you for helping us make a wonderful podcast out of a very disappointing set of church meetings. And we'll see you all at Sunstone UK. Smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. Check these guys out in the description. All their channel links are there. Subscribe to them, go to their stuff, and we'll see you around. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.